falling apart.
I'm dying.
You're melting like the real witch of the West. Welcome back to the Shaken Not Scared podcast. Here with you as always, Erick Vivi. Today we're talking about the 2016 film The Love Witch, directed by Anna Biller. But before we get into that, how are you, Vivi?
I'm super excited to talk about this movie.
It's been a long time coming. I always see it promoted on Hulu. Was it Hulu? Shudder. It looks fun. I even was surprised it is from 2016 because of how good it is as far as like shooting it like an old style movie.
Yeah, it's very 70s style. I've wanted to cover this since like last Valentine's Day, so I'm excited. It's the perfect Valentine's Day horror.
It is. And I think it's a good Valentine's Day movie for anyone involved, because sometimes I feel like, at least as a dude, guys will be like, Valentine's Day movie, it's not for me. But I think this is good for whoever is watching it.
Spoiler alert for our opinions at the end.
Yeah.
What's up with you?
I've been okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, it is fine. Time is like this.
Existential crisis.
Yep. And that's all it is.
All around.
Yeah. What do you have for creepy content?
I randomly decided to watch The Happening last night. Honestly, I wanted to watch Piggy, but I was doing other things, and Piggy is in another language, so I would have to sit there and read subtitles.
You said that it was in Spain Spanish, but of the Castellan kind? I think that's what it's called.
I think that's what it's called. And I could understand like every other word, but I was like, oh no, I actually have to pay attention. So I threw on The Happening because I remember you saying that it reminded you so much of Bird Box.
Vice versa.
And vice versa. So I gave it a shot. I was not a fan, though.
You like Sandra better?
I did. It could be the acting in this one. A lot of it did not work for me.
I only think that I was against Bird Box because when watching it, everyone was like, well, greatest film on the planet. And yeah, I sound like a hater. But I was like, I mean, this is basically The Happening. And it's not like a wholly new concept. It felt like The Happening mixed with Quiet Place is what Bird Box felt like.
Okay.
Yeah, it had been a long time since I'd seen The Happening, so I agree. I think that Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel were not the best acting choices.
Not at this point in their careers, at least. Zooey Deschanel, I feel like, plays herself. She's one of those actresses.
So does Mark Wahlberg. I feel like he plays the same dude in everything he's in.
Yeah. But other than that, I also watched this documentary. It's not new. I think it came out last year, but it just got released to Hulu. The Secrets of Playboy. It's so fucked up.
It is. I only watched a little bit because you fell asleep with it on, and I was trying to tell you about it the next day. You finally finished it, right?
I did, and then I kept telling you all the horrible things that they said in that documentary. No spoilers for if you want to go check it out. Again, it came out last year, but it just became available. It's just fucked, man. That's all I can say.
I haven't finished it either, but when you told me what happened and just all the really messed up stories, I went onto Twitter and I was like, so has anyone checked it out? Because from the sounds of it, it's basically a horror movie.
A horror documentary, yes.
And it's really messed up because these are real stories, obviously.
Yeah. On that depressing note, what do you have for creepy content?
So I had a lot of fun, actually. A few weeks ago, I was on with Anthony from Fuck You Hexed. We talked a lot about just different scary things. I think we had a grand old time, and we could have been talking forever. It was probably one of the first times that he and I had like kind of left the conversation to our conscious streams, but we focused in on the back rooms and brujeria. So it was a good time. Go check it out. Fuck You Hex is the name of his show. The rest of his show is also really good. You don't have to go because I'm there. I also played Prognostic. You're a cop who has a history with this like witch who helped cops in the past solve murders. And in order to find out what happened to her and the cop who was working with her, you have to step backwards in her path, but also use her magic to help ongoing murders. So while you're trying to solve the ongoing murders, the grandma is like haunting you, and you have to try to solve the murders before she kills you. It's really fun. Yeah, I got through, I think, 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah. And there's still a lot to go, I think, so I didn't find out what's going on. The last one that I thought was really hard was I had to figure out someone's birthday using zodiac signs and fire signs and stuff. I told you it was really complicated. I'm really bad at reading comprehension, as you know. So I was sitting there like, wait, what? To these like 3 pages of instructions.
It's too much. It's too much work.
Well, in the end, I was like, oh, it has the birthday right here. I know what
How do you know what zodiac sign they are? That's funny. I could have helped you with that probably, but as we know, I can't watch you play those like games because I get sick.
Oh, well, if they're darker, I wonder if you would...
If I just close my eye.
Reach into your witch psyche and just,
read
tap
the
into
energies.
the game. If you listen to the brujeria part of Fuck You Hexed, you'll know that I was saying that the internet and witchcraft are the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
Vibes and auras are just waves.
Like-
Welcome to my TED Talk about witchcraft and Wi-Fi. What do you have for comfort content?
Nothing.
No
comfort.
No comfort.
What about you?
I've found comfort in Ripley not having accidents anymore.
Oh, you jinxed it.
Damn it. You're right. Just have one thing. Vox Machina was suggested to us by one of our friends, Daryl. Shout out to Daryl. And it's like an animated and messed up version of what you would think is The Witcher and Lord of the Rings. It's created by Critical Role, which is like a D&D thing. I thought it was fun. It's really messed up. It's on Amazon Prime, so if you do have time to go watch fantasy stories and murder, go check it out. While we gather our fun facts, let's talk about this drink.
I don't know if we said this when we recorded the episode, but happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day 1 week later.
You could still celebrate love a week later.
You have all the sex for all the days in the rest of the year until next Valentine's Day.
You could do whatever you want. So I think I talked a little bit about how there is a special, the Last Drive-In special, featuring this movie. In it, there's like a little joke about how they're making love potion number 9, and it has a lot of ingredients and increments of 9. I think if I made that actual concoction into a drink, it would be disgusting, but I tried to get inspired from it. So I'm still going to call this love potion number 9. And it's kind of simple. All you're going to do is make a syrup of 1 cup of strawberries, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water, add in a sprig of rosemary to give it an herb flavor. And you are going to let that simmer. Once it's done, strain it, store it however you want. By the time it's time to make the cocktail, you are going to take 1 ounce of that syrup, 1 ounce of your favorite gin, mix that together, and you're going to pour it into a champagne flute and top it with, I would recommend, a not sweet red wine because this syrup is going to be sweet.
It was funny when we were making the drink video. I thought the syrup was the end.
You thought that was just the drink, and you're like, why'd you choose such a ginormous glass for it?
Where is the rest of it?
I need more alcohol, man.
Love is fleeting, and that's why this drink is so minimal.
Just strong and small. That's love. But do you want to try it?
Yeah.
Cheers.
It's funny because the little syrup is
At
sticking
the
to the
top.
glass. Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably strain it twice if you don't like that.
I just meant it gives it like this glittery effect.
I thought about adding glitter to it.
That's good.
Are you sincere?
No, it's good. It's
It's a very unusual flavor.
yeah, the flavors go well with each other in a very good way.
Yeah, again, this is where you have to be careful with the wine you choose to pair it with.
Not sponsored, but we went with a carnivore, which is our favorite.
Yeah, I like that it has that aftertaste of like an herb flavor. Makes me think of what's the character that drinks the hallucinogenic berries?
Oh, Wayne.
Wayne is probably what Wayne drank.
Who do you give the rainbow to? This is the dark and mysterious side.
It really is.
Maybe later we'll make the rainbow version of the dark and mysterious drink.
I wish I had one of those giant goblets that she later gives another one of her victims to drink it out of.
Of all the glasses we have in our pantry, we don't
No
have
giant
a
goblet.
giant goblet.
No.
Damn.
You know what we might have? I just didn't want to look for it.
It's hidden away because it's so big.
What would you rate this?
I give it 3 love spells out of 5. How about you?
I am going to give it a 3.5 out of 5.
It is really good. It is very riveting feedback from me as always.
Yeah.
It's very good with a capital O.
Why capital?
If wine is your thing,
Yes.
give it a shot. Give this to your loved ones so that they get put under your spell.
That sounds non-consensual.
Consensually ask your loved one if they want to be put under a love spell.
There
and
you
then
go.
Give them this.
Beautiful. Love that.
Back to you. Past us.
You got a segue to bring us back?
No.
We never do.
If it works, let us know. Send your loved one who has a spell on them to send us a message.
Sounds like they're going to sue us.
If the spell worked, they don't even know they're under a spell.
That's true. That's not good. So, you ready to give me fun facts?
I am. I only have 2.
Wow.
The first one I have is that Anna Biller, who's obviously the director, created Elaine's character after reading some relationship self-help books. One book in particular, though, suggested that a woman should love a man more than a man loves her, which reminded her of the way women were portrayed in classic cinema, sometimes loving men to literal death.
I could see where that inspiration came in.
Femme fatale ain't femme fatale for nothing.
Definitely, I feel like she was inspired by the femme fatale era with Elaine.
Plenty. It's kind of funny how the movie ends, too, and I feel like it really leans into the whole message of the movie, but also like the books that are out there suggesting all kinds of radical shit.
For relationships.
Yeah.
I haven't read one. I can't.
You've never read a book, though, that is like, hate yourself, love you, man?
Twilight?
True. David Mullen had shot a film for Anna Biller in the past on a 16mm and was approached once more with the vision of bringing the classic cinematic feel to life in modern day. I read a whole snippet. It was actually kind of funny. It was from David Mullen on cinematography.com, like Reddit style, like a forum, like, hey guys, guess what I'm doing? I'm working on this film called The Love Witch for Anna Biller, and it's kind of cool because like back in the day I filmed this 16mm thing for her, and now she wants me to do this, and it's all this like cinema and photography speak. Like I shot it on a f2.8 shutter speed. It's probably all wrong. Don't come at me. But it's a whole thing, so if you are interested in finding out how David Mullen filmed this, you can probably go find it on cinematography.com. He's got like 3 paragraphs worth of detail on how he filmed it. The point is that he ended up shooting this in a 35mm, which let him get closer to Technicolor than anything else, allegedly. I'll take his word for it. He could have possibly used.
Visually, you can tell that this film is very different from any modern film. Like, again, I think when I told you I want to cover this, you're like, oh, is it that movie from the 70s? I was like, it's not. But it's shot to feel that very, like, dreamy quality, Technicolor.
Which means that it worked, right? As someone who was looking at it from outside in, it was so close to an old movie look that I was like, oh yeah, isn't it
It's an old movie.
If this was done a different way, they would have just put a filter on it and called it a day.
Yeah, Anna Biller, like, is incredibly involved with this movie. This is, I would probably say, her like baby. Not only did she direct, write, she did like set design, produce, music, like everything she did, like she had a hand in. So I actually recommend watching the Joe Bob Briggs Last Drive-In special on this because he interviews the director and she gives insight into the movie, and it's pretty fun. Are you stalling? Because I'm making you do the speed run again.
No. Hold on.
What happens in this movie?
All right.
Ready? Go.
Elaine is a person who's coming in from out of town. She has a mysterious past, but she shows up to town, introduces herself to all the other women. Turns out that witches are a natural thing in this community. There's a already existing witchcraft community that is protected, apparently. There's like these rules that are kind of openly spoken about. They're like, oh yeah, those are just the witches. Like they're just any other group that hangs out there. So little by little, we find out that Elaine has these powers that make whoever she wants fall in love with her. She kills this dude Wayne, who's like madly feeling for her. There's her neighbor's husband, who also is like into her, but he's more into the concept of her, not actually into her. Then there's this cop who's square-jawed, and he's like, yeah, I'm here to save the day. She also tries her magic on him, doesn't work. Everything ends up tragically, but not really for Elaine, more for everyone else. And it's this real like push and pull thing of how she loves more the concept of power, not men.
Wow, you had 1 second left.
Yes. Was it good though? Did I do all right?
You spent like the first 20 seconds talking about the witch community.
Well, because it's a pretty prominent piece in the film.
I thought you weren't going to make it.
This is what's there, and everything else kind of just follows. It is a lot of world building, I think. It's also a long movie.
Somewhat. It is. It is a 2-hour film. And would you say it lags at some point?
But isn't that what those old movies were like?
It is how those old movies felt. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was bored at any point.
Exactly. It is beautiful and stunning, and honestly, you could throw it on. If you don't like any single plot point in this movie, just throw it on because it is just beautiful to look at.
Mm-hmm. And the music is good. I even took a bath while I watched this. That sounds weird. Given the vibe of this movie, it's also very sexual, and I was not doing anything. I was just chilling.
Anyway, shall we get started?
Yeah. Hit me with the Love Witch.
I would like to say I tried to do the blue eyeshadow. It's coming off very navy blue in this camera.
Would you like me to adjust the lighting?
It's okay. But that's the goal of what I was going for here today.
How cool would it be if I could like just switch this to look Technicolor like in the movie?
We got to get a 35mm film.
All right, I'll be back.
All right. We open on Elaine driving a red car down an open road. She has the coolest blue eyeshadow and is saying that she's starting a new life for herself. She reaches for another cigarette from her purse, and out falls a tarot deck with the 3 of Swords, triggering Elaine to have a flashback of a man being poisoned and saying, "Poor Jerry," explaining that she had a nervous breakdown when he left her. There's a really funny bit here from her therapist because she's like, "I'm all cured now. My therapist says that everyone suffers. Some more than me." We talked a little bit about this, but we kept saying this had like a lot of comedic elements.
Oh, the whole movie is pretty much a comedy, at least for any part that doesn't involve murder.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this exactly a horror comedy, but there is definitely some funny parts into it.
This may just be because I recently have gotten into Poppy, but her voice is a lot like what Poppy sounds like.
She's very sing-songy.
Yeah.
Apparently, the actress Samantha Robinson and Anna Biller really worked close together to create the character of Elaine. They wanted to make her believable, and I feel like you could tell when a director and an actor are on the same page.
She doesn't miss a beat. I don't think that there's any time in the film where you disbelieve Elaine is a character from this era. I told you that it tricked me. She looks the part when she moves her hair and puts it on her. I was like, oh, that's how they did it. I even learned some things. I didn't know that that's how they made their hair look like that.
It's definitely not the early 2000s bump it that women used to wear. Do you remember that? Awful. Also, I feel like time in this movie is not exactly a factor because I don't think it's from the 70s. There's a point where Trish pulls out a cell phone.
Okay,
it's the only cell phone we ever see.
Oh my God, I was going to ask you because I was prepping the bath when this scene happened and I was like...
Sounds like you had a little ritual.
Did she just pull a cell phone out? What the fuck?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. And I was going to ask you, but I completely forgot, so I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, it is kind of in limbo, this world.
It's the one time you're kind of pulled out of it, oh, this is still modern times, possibly.
Or is it all a dream?
Definitely, Elaine is not the reliable narrator, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I also mentioned the color of her car because this woman is decked out in red.
She's doing the classic, driving, and then there's the moving background.
Oh, it's so bad. Yeah.
Again, you're trying to catch the essence of this time.
Of that time. So, a police car pulls up behind her and pulls her over. She looks pretty nervous about this. The cop simply informs her that her tail light is out, and she looks pretty relieved. He lets her off with a warning, and she drives off.
Fuck this cop. Mind your business. It's daytime. What do you mean my tail is out?
You realize this is Griff, right? Who pulls her over.
Oh, it's him?
It's Griff.
From the end?
Yes.
Oh.
So when she's like, I feel like I've seen you before. And he's like, me too. It's because he's pulled her over before.
I thought she was alluding to the painting.
No.
Already.
Well, yes, but that's part of it. They actually have seen each other before.
Interesting.
Also, Griff, he, like you mentioned in your speed run, very square jawed, classic handsome dude, modeled for romance novel covers.
Oh, no.
And that's how he got this role, because he was just so, classically beautiful.
No shame to Guion Keys, but I do want to tell you that his acting style is exactly like the main guy from Thanksgiving. Listen to his voice. I even double took because I was like, that sounds exactly like the football guy.
Oh, his acting is not good. I think the point is that he's handsome. And it could be seen as a commentary of female characters in time.
They're just looks, not
substance.
Else, no personality.
Yeah, I will say that you need a probably second watch of this film, because if you just watched it one time, you would think, oh, this is a stupid take on women and how they should treat men, or I don't really know what this movie's trying to say. It's clever. It's all underlined. I hope we can get into it, but there's
I keep getting in the way.
But I keep
an idiot man.
No, but I keep getting distracted. I'm sweating, which is apparently also fitting because all the lights they had to do for this film to shoot on 35 millimeter was hot.
Yeah, when you look up the pictures, it's just a bunch of people standing over Elaine on a bed.
And they're sweating, probably.
On tour.
Oof. Gross.
Glistening with other people's sweat.
Stunning. Elaine's inner monologue is funny to me. She talks about how when Jerry left, she studied everything possible on how to get your man back, and that all the experts agree that men are very fragile and that you have to be tricky. You cannot assert yourself in any other way or they get crushed.
Egos are tiny.
Elaine pulls up on a beautiful Victorian home, where Trish, the interior designer, is giving her the keys to her new apartment. The apartment is designed to be a very Wicca, design from the tarot card deck, pretty cool looking apartment.
Your friend was like, this is her vibe, and she was like, that's weird as hell. I didn't think you were gonna like it. You were gonna want to leave. And she's like, no, this is totally my vibe.
Perfect. Trish is a funny character to me because every time she sees Elaine, and I mentioned this to you, she's like, oh my god, you're really pretty. Oh, I don't mean it that way. I'm married. It's like, Trish, nobody thought it was weird that you said that until you made it weird.
Hey, Trish and Elaine could be shipped.
Don't think so.
No.
I don't think they have a good friendship or relationship.
I mean, no, yeah. Elaine ends up screwing her over.
Big time. Trish shows her around the apartment, and Elaine asks her where she could grab a bite to eat. Trish informs her that she was just going to go get lunch at the tea room and if she'd like to join her. This tea room is beautiful. It is pink. It is glittery. Everyone is also dressed in pink, wearing tea hats And yep, there's even a harp player in the background.
Which never comes back into play, right? She just intensely stares at Elaine. I thought maybe she was a witch herself.
I think she is a witch.
Okay, but she doesn't come back later, though.
She is in, like, the other tea room scenes, just kind of, like, watching.
She's the one who's, like, hitting the big-ass when Elaine looks at somebody.
She's literally just scoring Elaine's life.
She's just running around with the harp everywhere.
Could you imagine?
Fuck, she's going this way now.
Yeah, I pay her to do this.
Yeah. I don't know. Every time somebody dies, there's a harp in the room.
Just saying. The two women discuss how the room is like a fairy tale and how deep down all women want is a fairy tale and a Prince Charming. But Elaine admits that she doesn't think she's found her Prince Charming just yet, and how she's been studying men ever since her ex-husband left her. Here's where we get her famous line.
You gotta say it just like her.
Oh, I don't know if I could say it. This was like a really popular TikTok sounder like a year or two ago. Now that's too much pressure.
Oh, okay. The day he left me was the day that I died, but then I was reborn as a witch. I can't remember.
Witch. Because she does say it so dramatically. I think that's like part of her charm as Elaine, is she delivers things as dramatic as they are in her head. But she's like, the day he left me was the day that I died, but then I was reborn as a witch. I don't think I did it right. I didn't do it justice.
That was great. I believed you. You're gonna go do some love spells on me later?
I don't have to. I already got this. I used sex to get what I wanted. I'm not proud of it, though, is what Trish says. I'm a virgin.
I'm just here.
The two women continue to have an interesting conversation about love, with Elaine believing you should give a man everything he wants, to be his fantasy. But Trish believes she's been brainwashed by the patriarchy, asking her what about what women want. She tells Elaine that a husband is not a prince and life is not a fairy tale. Elaine's response? Maybe life would be more like a fairy tale if you pleased your husband more.
Whoa, Elaine, we just met, dude.
I know, she went straight for the throat. I was like, damn, girl.
You want some real tea? Trish, if you gave better dick, your husband might love you more. If you started just pecking your husband.
That might be what he wants, we don't know. Just then, Richard, Trish's husband, walks in. Elaine looks at him intensely while dramatic music plays. It seems like she's putting a spell on him as the two are introduced.
Girl in the back's like...
going hard.
I did think that this was interesting because the dude just comes in and then Trisha's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I don't know, I was just looking for you. She's like, men aren't allowed in here.
Which is so interesting. I don't know if places like this actually exist. Like all women tea rooms or something.
You just aren't looking hard enough, babe. You need to find the neighborhood witches.
There is a neighborhood tea shop. Actually, around here, there is also like a apothec shop. That we go into. I had to stop myself from going there after work today to buy a bunch of props for this movie.
You should.
And by that I mean stuff I just want.
You should ask them. See if there's like a community thing.
There probably is, right?
And then you'll be brought into the community pink tea room.
Pink tea room. The secret tea room. Back in her apartment, Elaine is painting and creating spells. She is creating a love ritual and prays to a goddess, asking her to send her a beautiful, sweet man to love her. The next day, Elaine goes to sell her spell candles and soaps to a Wiccan store. This interaction is interesting to me. The owner of the shop is very like stoic, but like not a bad actress, but
I think she's kind of cool because she plays the don't ask, don't tell role.
And she really does.
You know, because right now she's just like, yeah, sure, I'll sell it. Then later the cops are just like, so who gave you this? And they're like, this lady. Although I guess in that case she is a
she
snitch.
Snitched.
Yeah.
I just like the kind of notion that there is an underground community of witches in this town and they're all supporting each other.
That's true.
In some way. When she breaks for lunch, she explains that people always ask her why she is a witch. And she explains that witchcraft is not exactly what people think, that it's just using your will to get what you want. Just then, she turns her gaze on a professor talking to a young girl, and he leaves her immediately to go over to talk to Elaine.
I know we're getting that Wayne, his name's Wayne, is under a spell, but the girlfriend is just like okay with him leaving her.
So I don't know if she's his girlfriend so much as a student he's banging, because that seems to be Wayne's vibe here.
Gotcha.
So I'll spare you the awkward flirting, but essentially Elaine invites herself over to the professor's cabin for a date. This man is also just willing to go off with a woman that he just met to his detriment.
He's under her spell though, no? Isn't that the effect? I'll do what you want, I love you?
Absolutely, but I do think that a man not under a spell would do this.
True, I think it's the commentary of this film. Whether the magic works or not, this is very possible because a man, to Elaine's point earlier, is very simple. A lot of it is
Yeah.
face value. None of it is deep. I felt like the roles kind of switched. Elaine was having trouble finding the love she was looking for. It felt like Elaine didn't want anything deep. She just wanted to feel powerful over these men. Men will, use and abuse women and don't give a shit about like their feelings.
Yeah, I definitely think this film can be viewed as like criticism on heterosexual man and woman romantic relationships. And I think even to one of the points you made earlier, she says that witchcraft doesn't guarantee that I'll get what I want. I can only work with what's already there. So yeah, Wayne's interest in her was like probably already there, and she just made it more intense.
Yeah, I got a cabin in the woods. Yeah, I'm down to die out in the middle of nowhere.
Wayne is creepy. Every man in this is creepy.
I read that. They pull up on the cabin.
Pull up. No, that's not what they do. They pull up to the cabin, and the professor doesn't even try to wait to get inside before putting the moves on her. It's like, dude, you drove all the way up there and was like, you want to just do it in the car?
No, yeah, he's like, let's relive our young fantasies like we were kids. I was like, yo, hold on. You want to rephrase that for a second?
So to kind of put the brakes on him, Elaine hands him a flask and instructs him to drink it. She says, you want to be a kid? Let's do some underage drinking in the car.
It is very much a testament to just dudes being thirsty, right? Because she's like, drink it. And he doesn't think twice. Like, he's kind of like, what's in it? But he chugs all of it because she tells him to. He doesn't think to be like, do you want some?
It's very interesting because it feels like Wayne thinks he's in control here. And often when we see this situation, it's usually the man doing these things to the woman. But here is Elaine pulling the strings on him. So he just drinks it. Once inside, the two begin their date night. The two talk and get to know each other, and we learn that Wayne has been drugged by Elaine. Shocking. She gave him hallucinogenic herbs and vodka.
I wanted to know what hallucinogenic herbs.
Is it mushrooms?
Are mushrooms herbs? He starts tripping balls.
He really does. Elaine begins to do a strip tease, and I think this is her further putting him under a spell.
I need a jacket like that. It's pretty stylish. The rainbow jacket on the inside.
It's so corny too. This scene, because before when the two are talking and getting to know each other, we learn a little bit about Wayne being a professor, and you could tell he's impressed with the fact that Elaine knows a little bit about literature, which is what he teaches, which goes to show you what he thinks of women who are attractive. But after that exchange, Elaine's doing this striptease for him, and he says such a cheesy line. He's like, you're all dark and mysterious, but the rainbow, who do you give that to? And she's like, I give it to you, and throws the jacket at him. I was like, this is really corny.
I felt like I was on drugs watching this because I could not
I think you're supposed to
understand what was going on either. Yeah, who is it for, Elaine? Who is the rainbow for?
Because while this is going on, there's like light flares and things going on. I think are meant to feel like Wayne tripping.
Now, it's weird watching this movie because it's like, well, I'm a man as well.
Oh,
Yeah, when he's like, you're so dark and mysterious, and he's attracted to her dark and mysteriousness. We always see this. Think back to any screamo, hardcore metal, emo song music video
that you all know
2000s.
And have in your psyche.
It's like, oh, the emo girl's so hot. Fuck the girl wearing a headband and wearing pink and shit. That girl sucks. She's too boring. I love the emo girl.
I'm in love with an emo girl.
I wonder what that means.
I could tell you what it means. It's that anything feminine is inherently terrible and bad, and therefore should be hated by all. You should not strive to be extremely feminine. You should try to adapt more to the male gaze. But it's very odd because then men love femininity no, they don't love femininity. They love the female form.
I have questions.
Oh, I could teach a class on this.
Okay, you said that it's because people hate anything feminine.
They do.
I'm talking about my case because I liked you because you were like a dark chick.
I'm sorry, you got no rainbow.
Yeah.
It's just more depression.
You got more rainbow as we got older. Like
oh, yeah.
Giant pink chair.
I think that's unlearning internalized misogyny and the hate for what you were told is not good.
That's where I'm confused. I believe you. I'm not like debating it. Just trying to understand. Like, okay, if we hate femininity as men, so liking the darker, more mysterious stuff is better as a result? Because I would think the opposite, right?
Because you're not like other girls who are dumb and like pink.
Interesting.
Because liking pink makes you dumb for some reason. Look at my chair.
Yeah, I only have questions because like that thought didn't ever cross my mind. It was like, oh, because pink versus black. It was just kind of like cooler. In my mind, it was cooler.
Right. And in your mind, you can't be both.
Right,
and you're surprised by it.
I was surprised because that's not your vibe. Because you've never been like a pink everything person.
No, yeah. There's a lot of things that I've been watching lately, especially with the rise now of what people call bimbo culture. You're told that pink things that are hyper feminine. Like, it's bad. Look at anything that's trendy with women. It is made fun of to shit. You can't like it. You're dumb for liking it. This goes with anything. Twilight, if girls start wearing flower crowns, people fucking hate flower crowns. Like, anything that's a trend with women, pay attention to how it's perceived in media.
Yeah, from the general public. Because I was, you know me, I'm not a trend follower.
You're a hipster.
I'm a hipster. All those things I would always associate, not with femininity, like the pink and all that stuff. I would always associate that stuff with white people.
Interesting. That's another layer to it.
Yeah, because I would never picture like a Hispanic girl to any of those things. Controversial statement, but because we have different culture and vibes than like the pink, the super feminine trope that is out there. It also has to do with like minorities not getting the spotlight. Those things are seen that way because white people do that. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Multi-layered.
Yeah. So Elaine begins to do a strip tease where we get that corny line. And I think this is her further putting him under her spell. The two make love and we get this trippy kaleidoscope shot of Elaine's face. And we mentioned this, but I wonder if that's what he's seeing now that he's on drugs.
I think it's also another way to amplify the aesthetic of the era. It's supposed to make you think this is the 70s and
drugs,
trippy,
sex,
drugs, love.
Yeah. After the act, Wayne immediately becomes emotional, saying his life has been so hard because he's only attracted to hot women who are dumb. So hard. Wayne begins to cry because he believes Elaine to be the perfect woman, and he's never allowed himself to feel this way about another person.
He's also never allowed himself to feel. Elaine, I've never felt any emotions this strongly before.
And I think that is done on purpose. It's like men are not allowed to feel. What would happen if a man was allowed to feel everything fully? He'd die.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this all the time, that even amongst friends. I think that my friends, to an extent, are more open to like talking about how we feel and stuff like that. But it isn't standard for a dude to tell another dude. I mean, how many TikToks do I make fun of to you that are like, don't tell your girl your feelings, tell your boys your feelings. Yeah, go tell your boys who are gonna roast you how you feel. Yeah, okay. Elaine says earlier, like, you know, men are children, and it's because men only ever emotionally felt fine around the only other woman around them, which was their mother, who they could tell their feelings to growing up.
Which is funny because a trend with Elaine here is that she always comforts these men, and she always says poor baby. Like, no matter what these men are saying, she says poor baby, and she sounds like she's really empathizing with them. So this is what she's doing here with Wayne, comforting him. But in the next scene, we see Elaine by herself downstairs as Wayne screams her name over and over again from the bedroom.
Elaine, where are you? I hate it so much.
She lights up a cigarette and she thinks, what a pussy. I thought I found a real man.
She's so upset.
She is funny. She says, no one ever comforted me when I was on my own. She just goes to sleep downstairs, leaving Wayne up there with his entire crisis. The next morning, she fixes Wayne something to eat, but he is still not in the best mental state. She leaves him to rest and goes to do a tarot reading. The cards seem to read certain doom, and upset by this, she goes to check on Wayne, only to discover that he died. Because obviously, if men open up and show their emotions, they die. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's an inside wound.
Once you let it all out, like, what are you going to do? You can't put that shit back in there.
I do think that this movie, at this point, leaves you in suspense. Like, oh no, is Elaine in shock?
Well, Elaine decides to send him off with a ritual that includes peeing into a jar and stuffing it with her used tampon.
I like one line that she says here: men don't understand things they don't know about, as she's
putting the tampon. Yeah.
Later, there are detectives who are looking at the ritual piece, and they're like, what is that? And they're like, I don't know.
Yes. She says, most men have never seen a tampon in their life. And then the investigators are like, what the fuck is that fucking thing?
Well, I will say that I fell for it because I was like, is that his tongue? But then I realized that, you know, I'm not that dumb. I'm not that
Have
much
you
of a
seen
man.
a tampon expand?
I've bought you tampons before.
You've washed my tampons before?
I've bought your tampons before.
No, sir, don't reuse them.
I've bought your used tampons before.
That's definitely a market.
Oh, it is.
But she does this so that a piece of her can be with Wayne forever. She sets off to bury his body, explaining that she doesn't really mind death, that she has buried people before, people she actually really cared about. So if it wasn't clear with all the flashbacks of her ex-husband, we are to guess that this is not her first murder rodeo.
Although the flashbacks to Jerry leave me like, well, good for her, because fuck that dude.
Yeah,
he was definitely terrible.
She performs a sort of funeral and burns all her clothes over his grave. I assume to get rid of evidence, but also to be symbolic. She also like starts talking about, if I were to be reincarnated, I want to come back as a cat.
Same though. Same.
Yeah, a house cat though, not a poor baby feral cat. We cut to Elaine back in her apartment. She is painting a painting that will be very significant later when Trish knocks on the door. It seems that Trish is there to check in on her since she hasn't been able to reach her. Elaine informs her that she was busy with a man, but that the relationship didn't really work out. Trish kind of is like, oh, well, maybe next time. I also just wanted to let you know that I'll be out of town for work. And Elaine immediately asks if Richard is going with her. A little suspicious.
Yep. I wanted to comment on like, wouldn't Trish be a little suspicious? But Trish is very trusting of Elaine, and I think that Elaine, screwed her over.
Yeah, I think if I told my friends, like I'm literally just thinking if I told Brenda, yeah, I'm going on a business trip, the first thing she'd ask me is like, oh, is Eric going with you? But probably more out of oh, you're not going alone.
Right, like for a safety.
For
like, is he going to accompany you?
Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't like necessarily right here be like, oh, that's a weird question. I would because they're not great friends yet, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Trish has no reason to doubt her.
Yet.
But she remembered my husband's name, and that's suspicious.
That guy that lives in your house, is he going with you? We cut to a bar/burlesque place where Elaine is catching up with Barbara. Barbara is mentioned earlier as being the one that owns the apartment that Elaine is actually staying in. She's telling her all about her ex-husband and Wayne. She explains that she used love magic on him, but it went horribly wrong. Clearly, Barbara's also a witch because she doesn't ask any questions, and she's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, damn, that's crazy. It'd be like that sometimes. People just be dying and shit. Magic gone wrong, what can I say?
The two are met by Gayan, who seems to be the priest of their coven, and you can tell he gives Elaine the ick, like, right away. He greets her by kissing her all over. I'm uncomfortable just watching this.
He goes down and kisses her fupa. He kisses her stomach.
I was gonna say her womb.
And then he kisses her forehead
titties.
and her titties. She's like, you've gone too far when he tries to kiss her face.
Yeah, it's, again, gives you the ick.
He kind of signifies the male gaze onto witchcraft as like witchcraft being this sexy thing with a bunch of women.
It's like exploiting the sexual liberation to his benefit, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm totally all for you being liberated as long as you're liberated all over me.
Let's do some witchcraft and orgies.
Yeah.
Oh wait, witchcraft? What?
He gives them both warnings against using love potions, but then proposes a toast. They chant their toasts and are told to go home, which is by the locals. It's like one particular guy who lives in this bar that keeps heckling them.
He ends up playing the town skeptic.
Yeah. Instead, they ignore him and discuss all the things that Gayan and Barbara are teaching. Gayan reveals that he is still teaching sex magic, and it's clear Elaine is not surprised by this and actually seems very grossed out by it. I get the vibe that he is abusing power in his teaching to sleep with young women who are like seeking help and guidance in witchcraft. So that's like double fucked up.
Another interpretation that I read was in the 70s, 80s, because it was also like peace and love time, right? Everyone's just like doing drugs, having sex and stuff like that. It was seen as a way to like just use it as a staple and say like, yeah, we're doing witchcraft, but it wasn't really for the sake of like what it actually meant to be pagan and follow Wicca and things like that. It was kind of just like face value. We do the rituals and it's all fun. We're all standing around a table. We have the sign of Baphomet and shit like that, but it's all just for show. Because
he even mentions when the townie is heckling him, he's like, I remember when we used to not care if you were a Satanist, a Wiccan, a white witch. Everyone just stripped down and had orgies in front of the Baphomet posters. It's like... Okay, dude.
Right. So he symbolizes that, I guess, sentiment. There were people who were definitely taking advantage.
Yeah, we see that a lot more later. They are joined by two of his students, Star and Moon, as he teaches them about the power of dance. While this is going on, we see a burlesque dancer in the background. We, as an audience, get a lovely lesson about love and sex magic. We get interesting notes here in the conversation that seem to be the opposite of the conversation that Elaine has had with Trish earlier. They teach that witchcraft is just a result of people's fears in female sexuality and how by reclaiming their sexuality, they can unlock their full potential. But that ultimately that full potential is still to get men to love them through sex magic and having complete control of him. So this conversation almost feels like it's going somewhere like progressive and empowering, but then ends with like...
For men.
For men. It's all for men. So, you know. This next scene is odd to me. Well, just to go back to that scene. This entire, like, monologue on witchcraft and having control over women is then undercut with the dancer because later on, these twin sisters are going to be performing their own dance. because dancing for men gives you power. This is where I gather that like, oh, Elaine's hypnotizing these men when she's dancing because she's learned it from them. So this next scene is a little odd to me. We see Elaine laying around in lingerie, feeling on herself, which seems to be a scene that emulates masturbation. But while this is happening, we hear all these horrible things that her ex-husband has said to her and horrible things that her father has said to her. And then finally we see Guyan teaching Elaine about sex magic through ritual. And it is clear in this flashback that Elaine is afraid and disgusted through the whole process. It feels like a sexual assault scene. I think it's something about him being the one that teaches it is like tainting it. Because why is, for all this female empowerment and things we have going on, the head of their coven a man?
Yeah, it's the patriarchy taking over something that's supposed to be for women.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the context of this film, because I know there is like people of all genders who practice witchcraft.
I've wanted to, but
I got books I haven't read yet. Yeah, this flashback seems to really kill the mood for Elaine. But then we meet Griff. Technically, we already met him. He was the cop that pulled Elaine over at the start of the movie. Only now it seems that he's been promoted to sergeant. His first case seems to be brought to him by Shelley, who is reporting Wayne, her professor, missing. She informs him that Wayne used to take dates up to his cabin in the woods, and Griff and his partner Steve, and Shelley, all go up to look for him. If your professor has a reputation for taking dates up to a cabin, like, fire him.
I did think that it was weird that the student takes forever to go tell the cops.
Well, it's 2 weeks, and it seems like she's kind of involved with him, but like not really. So when is it
Stop
weird?
showing up to class.
But she only cares because she's also fucking the professor. And like,
right, no other student. They didn't have a crowd of students, meaning that Wayne was not that great of a teacher.
No, I honestly, if a professor of mine went missing for 2 weeks, I'd say that's none of my fucking business.
Honestly,
it's class canceled.
I don't even know what any of my professors looked like because I was never in class. So cool.
So
cool for skipping on class that
you pay for.
College is a joke. And then?
Then what happened? The group find the cabin just as Elaine left it. There is food all over the place. There is ingredients from her rituals. And finally, the witch jar that's buried in the yard with Wayne. The funny thing to me about this jar is that everyone smells it. Everyone smells the pee jar. Ugh. I don't know.
Hold on. If they were the cops from Beast of Bray Road, they'd have been like,
it's pee. Elaine didn't do a great job of covering up this crime scene because they still find pieces of her clothing and the jar there.
Yeah. But Elaine is confident in her methodology. So. She wouldn't have left the jar there either if she was really trying to hide stuff.
Yeah. In her mind, again, she's not a reliable narrator. She doesn't feel like she did anything wrong. Wayne died because he couldn't handle his emotions.
And he had a heart attack.
That's not my fault. I like this transition. Griff begins to dig up the body, and we cut to Elaine having dinner with Richard. He's cutting a piece of chocolate cake as...
Oh, it was a pretty cool cut, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's cool?
It's kind of a dirty
I thought it was funny that he was digging up the body. Isn't there like a whole process for this? Don't you have to get like actual trained professionals in there? He's just like, let me take off my coat and start digging.
I thought the way she buries him was kind of cool too, because she's straight up flexing all the muscles to shove that dirt in there.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. That alone is reason not to do stuff like that.
I gotta dispose of it afterwards. Ugh. She says she hopes she doesn't mind her calling as she gets lonely, and he confesses that he gets lonely when Trish is out of town. The two make themselves comfortable on the couch, and Elaine serves him a drink in the hugest goblet I've ever seen. It's comical to see this grown man drinking like this fishbowl of a goblet. Tiny hand.
Yeah.
It's easy to tell that Richard is getting like more and more drunk as he's sipping from this giant goblet. I think we all know where this is going. Elaine starts to ask him about what turns him on. He says flying.
She's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Visibly, Elaine's face is like, flying? I've heard of porn, bondage, dressing up like a baby.
But flying?
Flying, though?
That's kind of weird. That's where I draw the line. Elaine has this way of talking to these men like they are children. Like everything they say, she's like, wow, it's fascinating. Like she's playing into their ultimate fantasy of what a woman should be.
Yeah, what does a man want? A person who listens.
A woman that thinks everything he says is fascinating. Elaine starts to perform a sexy dance and seduces him. When he asks who she is to make him act so crazy, she yells with glee, I am the love witch. I'm your ultimate fantasy.
She said it just like that, actually.
No.
She did.
She said it very...
I am your ultimate fantasy.
Yeah, and then they're like giggling like crazy. We cut back to Griff, who is investigating Wayne's death. He goes to ask a professor who studies the occult what the meaning of the bottle he found was. The professor gives him a quick rundown on witchcraft and informs him that witches very much still exist today and are still practicing rituals. We then cut to Elaine and her coven performing rituals in the woods. Interesting thing to note, Elaine and Guyan are the only ones dressed during rituals. The rest of the coven is completely naked.
Yeah, men and women included.
And they're made up of only white people, I also noticed.
Yes, that is true.
Just saying, where's this small town? There's no people of color. After the ritual, a party is taking place, and Guyan is being a creep to Elaine, groping her and telling her that her love life isn't so dire, unless, of course, you are her victim. She tenses, and it seems that Guyan knows what she's been up to. He just literally gropes her boob and, is like, I'm not one of your victims. What a creep. She ditches him and goes to find Barbara. They chat and we learn that she's back in the dating pool. Seems Richard got too obsessive and morose and he became too much like a woman, so Elaine had broken it off with him. He didn't even want to make love anymore. Noticing a trend that when Elaine gets these men and they start to expose actual feelings, she views it as
a woman.
Too feminine and backs off.
She calls the first guy a pussy. She calls him a woman.
Calls him a Pisces.
She's falling into her own trap.
Oh yeah, she's definitely someone who makes her own tragedy. We then see Richard drinking and crying in his study, and he looks rough. He keeps giving Trish the cold shoulder and drinking before erupting into full-on tears in plain sight of his wife. He's not even trying to hide it.
In front of his wife?
At least have the decency to keep it a secret. No shame.
He doesn't straight up tell her though, right?
No, he doesn't, but he's weepy all the fucking time and doesn't want his wife near him.
Yeah, because Trish later is like, I wanted to find the woman who did it.
She knew. She knew something was going on. Again, he was not hiding it. We meet up with Griff again, who has traced the witch bottle back to the witchcraft spiritual shop that Elaine visited earlier. The owner of the store informs him that they sell witch bottles there, and that Elaine is the one who supplies them. So Griff tracks down Elaine and shows up at her apartment. He begins to question her over the homicide of Wayne, and she is very standoffish, not willing to help. She won't look at him when he talks to her, questioning her about the witch bottles she makes. She excuses herself as her ritual/spell that she was working on starts to boil over and make a mess. Griff just asks her point blank if she is a witch, and she replies yes, asking if that's a crime, if that makes her evil, or even capable of murder. Griff seems to be ashamed of his question, and Elaine really leans into it, beginning to cry and explain that to her, witchcraft is her religion, and helped her through some of the worst times in her life.
The commentary on witchcraft here, too, is interesting because where other films will, prosecute people immediately for witchcraft, this one's yeah, witchcraft's just another thing. Which is interesting. We never see this. At least rarely we do.
Griff goes to comfort her, and when Elaine looks at him, his entire demeanor has changed. Again, she looks at him with a very close-up on her eyes. Harp girl in the back, running around, getting her background music going. I like how we're both like...
She run up the stairs. Oh shit, I didn't realize this was happening. The cop showed up out of nowhere. Didn't make it.
She texted her, get your ass here now. Suddenly, Elaine realizes that Griff looks familiar, but believes him to be the man in the cards, her fate. Griff doesn't seem to actually be listening to anything Elaine is saying because she's talking about love and marriage. But all she mentions is that the man that she loves must love animals. And she's like, do you love animals, Griff?
I really fucking do, actually. I really do love animals. But his bit is also to
smolder.
I don't think I have a strong enough chin to...
Oh God, you look like Popeye.
I do look like Popeye.
That is his, tough guy demeanor, though.
I don't know what you're saying. Sounds like a lot of woman talk, but I'm into it.
Griff invites her on a date to go horseback riding. There couldn't be a more fairy tale picturesque first date. Come on, riding horses.
He was feeling himself now because he's on those romantic novel books.
So he's in his element.
In his element.
Yeah, why do romantic novels always have a dude on horse?
They always have, what's his name? That dude?
Fabio.
Fabio?
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two are riding horses. I don't know exactly where they are. Out in the mountains, probably.
The Renaissance Fair.
In the Renaissance Fair.
Horseback riding school.
They have what looks like the most fairy tale first date ever, horseback riding. The two start kissing and suddenly hear medieval music playing.
This felt like they were in Wonderland, didn't it? It felt like they were in the Queen of the Cards' land, and
definitely
there was a jester and there's a bunch of other
suddenly you just walk into this Renaissance fair that you had no idea was going on. Or did she? Because Barbara and Guyan are the ones who have organized this Renaissance fair. They greet Elaine and Griff, and he seems to be surprised by the fact that she knows them. They invite them to partake in their midsummer festival, and Elaine agrees, kissing Griff. The crowd finds this charming and asks the couple to participate in a mock wedding to honor the gods of love. We get a lovely little song before the mock wedding that seems to be a warning about the couple's future, if you pay attention to the lyrics. But then they whisk them away to be changed. The two are brought together at an altar and joined in matrimony. The two are then treated to a feast and are feeding each other while we're treated to their inner monologue.
And it is not what you thought we were going to get.
No, I think this scene truly encompasses the stereotypes of what men and women seek in heterosexual relationships.
So I think that the fact that they're getting married also has something to play in the way that the characters are shown. Up until this point, none of the relationships that she's had with these men have been anything outside of physical. We're just going to have sex. And in the case of Richard, maybe not even that. But the moment that marriage is thrown in, and this could have to do with like what Anna saw in those relationship self-help books, was what happened when I told you that I would tell men like, hey, I'm going to get married. Oh, good luck. When's the funeral? To women, oh, amazing. When is it? Everything's positive. For a man, it's negative. Why does the magic not work on Griff? Marriage is thrown in. And how do men see marriage? As the end of their personality.
He even freaks out when they're like, let's do a wedding. He's like, wedding? Yeah. And they're like, chill. It's a mock wedding.
So I don't think it's on accident that marriage is thrown in and Griff is having this inner monologue that it's like, no, I don't love her. It starts to create turmoil within him that maybe before this moment didn't happen.
And at this point, it's odd because he's the only one that's not under her spell fully. Like, she's done the whole gazing at him, putting him under her spell in that way, but she hasn't done her usual, like, drugging them in some sort of way, or her seduction dance. He's the only one that we don't see use sex magic on. But their inner monologue is kind of funny, if not sad. This scene is so lit beautifully. They're in wedding clothes, they're kissing each other, they're feeding each other food, and Griff literally says, I'm not in love. Because love is soft, and you need guts in this business. He admits that he wants an heir, and for that, he would need a wife. But love is something else. He says men can get destroyed by something like that. It's like they're not even men anymore, and he never wants to get like that. It's funny because he seems to mirror Elaine's sentiment that once these men fall in love with her, they become like
pussies.
So he's like, when a man falls in love, he's not a man anymore. And I think that is why her fascination with him lasts longer than any other of her victims.
And you know what I have to say to that, Griff? Cash me outside, man.
That's what he said to his partner later on. Elaine, on the other hand, is ready to overlook any flaws a man has, saying the more you learn about a man, the more you love him. Griff, however, states the exact opposite. He says, the more you know about a woman, the less you can feel for her. How at first she's a mysterious creature who fulfills your every fantasy, but after a while, it's hard to care. He claims that women know you're pulling away and they're trying to love you more until they suffocate you and you drown in estrogen.
Am I drowning you in estrogen?
I drowning you in estrogen?
No, I feel like I drown you in estrogen. Because I'm always like, love me more, please love me.
Love me, love me. I feel like that should be the theme song for this movie.
Say that you love me.
It is the next day and Griff is back on the job. Steve informs him that he has more info on Elaine, but Griff isn't interested. He tells Steve that the sheriff wants them to lay off the case, that he doesn't want them hassling the witches of the town as they're kind of like respected in a way. He just is kind of like, don't mess with them, they don't mess with us. And he's happy with believing that Wayne's death was caused by a heart attack.
That makes it sound like the witches are a gang.
They might be pulling some political strings or something.
Yeah,
could be.
The witchcraft cartel.
Love it. But Steve reveals that Elaine has somewhat of a sketchy past. Once her marriage fell apart, she joined a coven of witches in San Francisco, and together they owned a burlesque bar. That's not that sketchy, dude. No. Here's where it is sketchy. Mysteriously, a lot of the coven turned up dead, along with Elaine's ex-husband, who was set to remarry. The police had reason to suspect Elaine, but couldn't prove anything. And Griff is satisfied by this answer, saying if the San Francisco police cleared her, that's good enough for him. I want to know what happened to this coven. I have a theory. I think she murdered anyone that witnessed what Gayan did to her. The sex ritual. The assault, I would say.
Except for Gayan, though?
Well, that would be too much. heat, you know,
I
since
think I
he's
would've started
powerful.
again.
I mean, yeah, but it's just my theory.
Interesting.
And then killed her ex-husband. She says that she had a psychotic break.
She became the Scarlet Witch.
Could be. She's always in red. So yeah. Yeah, I cannot this podcast. So go look up the actual images. This character has style. Style in a way that I would find exhausting. I don't know how to match any clothes together. She is a woman that's like always matching things. And the director noted that that was on purpose. And later she has a conversation with Griff as to why this might be. But again, describing this movie isn't doing this movie justice. You have to visually see it.
I also want to understand what the bit was for Griff to be so standoffish. Like, we've already kind of touched on that marriage and things like that kind of shut him down. Is this also a metaphor that, like, once men are married, they turn into this, like, very bitter, like, I don't really give a shit, fuck it, I don't care?
No, I actually think that despite what he says, I think he is falling in love with Elaine because he defends her. Steve calls Griff crazy, saying that Elaine is clearly dangerous, but that he can't see it because he's in love with her. This offends Griff so much that he punches Steve in the face before storming out of the police department.
Love?
Yeah, the word love is what triggers him because it's like he doesn't want to admit it.
Because, babe,
it makes him
love
soft.
Makes you soft.
We then check back in on Trish, who at this point in the movie I had completely forgotten about. So much happens. But she seems to be having a really hard time. She hears running water coming from somewhere in the house and realizes that Richard has locked himself in the bathroom. In a panic, Trish bursts in only to find that Richard has unalived himself in the tub.
That's how she does it.
Yeah, not surprised. Richard was really going through it. And obviously we learned that all of Elaine's partners end up dead one way or another.
Richard was such an odd case, wasn't he? Because he kind of wasn't into it, but was...
Oh, he was into it.
So into it, but
he
like
was
not...
too into it.
Yeah, not in the traditional sense. Because even Elaine's like, he wasn't really into me. He was kind of just into the idea of me.
Yeah, I think Trish says that later as well, which I got opinions on. Seeking comfort. We don't know how much time has passed between that scene and the next scene, but Trish reaches out to Elaine and the two meet for lunch in the tea room. Trish confesses that she knew Richard was having an affair and that she also knew she would never be the type of woman Richard wanted, which is so incredibly shitty. Why marry someone when you know, like, oh, they're not the type of person I want, but settle for them? This is why people got divorced so much back in the day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that isn't that reminiscent to everything that people say? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I ended up just marrying whoever I could find. Especially in small towns. In small towns, you kind of just marry who's nearby.
Yeah. She explains that she was so angry and wanted to kill them both, but now she knows she should have helped him get over her.
Goes to show how genuine and nice Trish is, because I think that's what she has been this entire film, is seen as this, like, actually it's funny, right? We were talking about earlier how pink and things like that are seen as like the feminine thing. I would say that Trish is shown in this like very vibrant pink color often as the symbol of light in this very dark story, and it's very telling of her. She would have helped him rather than be vengeful like Elaine.
I agree with that. I don't think that she's a perfect character. She has like this weird judgment fascination with Elaine. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if like Trish is closeted, because all the comments she makes about her are weird. And then all the comments she makes about her husband are a little off too. Maybe not closeted, but maybe she's bisexual, but she's not a perfect saint-like character to me in this film. I don't think anyone is. I think everyone has a little bit of fault in this. Like, the first scene that she meets Elaine, and Elaine's like, I used to be a dancer. She looks her up like, trash.
I think that a lot of movies will portray a person like Trish and say, wow, I wish that I was like you, but I'm not that crazy. You know, I have buttons and T's on everything, yeah. But I really wish I could be like you. It's kind of like this, I support you, but I would never do any of that myself personality.
Yeah, it's kind of like she envies Elaine's confidence in her sexual power, right? Because she says at the beginning, she's like, I'm not proud that I use sex to get a ring. It's like, nobody cares, dude. Elaine is being terrible and barely comforts her. When Trish asks her what's going on in her life, she gushes about how she's in love and sure that her new man will pop the question anytime. Even showing Trish the promise ring he gave her. Trish comments on how it's ironic that the first time they were there, Elaine was alone and she had a man, and now it's the opposite. This is sad.
It's a really weird thing to talk about with your friend. Wow, that's so fucking funny that my shit's going to hell and yours is actually kind of thriving.
Yeah.
That's cool.
She's really hurting, and
Yeah.
Elaine's like in the best spot of her life right now.
That sucks. But
Listen, let me tell you how great my life is going. Oh, unsurmountable tragedy? No. Elaine abruptly says that she has to go after she says this and hugs Trish goodbye. Trish realizes that Elaine left her ring with her and calls her to inform her that she's gonna drop it off at her apartment. Again, the first time you see a cell phone in this film.
I did this because I forgot that like Gen Z does this now for
They
phones.
do this. Yeah.
I hold my phone like this still.
Really? I mean, yeah. But you didn't used to hold old phones like this.
I mean, yeah, you would. You ever had like the hang up phones? I would always go like this.
Okay. I think I would hold like the thing, like this, like.
Yeah, I guess so.
Interesting. Trish goes to leave the ring in Elaine's apartment and notices all the odd sex ritual drawings and relics Elaine has laying around.
Weren't they already all there though? Some of the ones that like with her boobs out by the door, that was already there when she moved in.
Some of them look like sketches that Elaine herself has done. You know, Trish was the interior designer, so maybe she was like, this wasn't here before. She finds them a bit odd, but goes to leave the ring in Elaine's room. And this next scene is weird. Trish notices all of Elaine's makeup and decides that she needs to start trying it on. She starts doing her makeup exactly like Elaine and even puts on her wig.
Although Trish has apparently seemed accepting of Elaine's ways and her witchcraft and things like that. If she was accepting, she would think nothing of the artwork that's around the apartment, right? But why would she think any of it's odd if she knows, like, she practices witchcraft? Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go in and put her ring down and then leave. But she goes in there and is like, oh, this is so weird. What the hell? And then starts putting her stuff on, trying her things on, trying to make herself look like Elaine. It's like, I, first of all, hate that I don't look like you and I can't be as free as you, which is like what people used to think of witchcraft, too.
Yeah,
was that
absolutely.
It was like freedom. But also, because I hate that I can't be like you, I also don't trust you. And I don't truthfully agree with the things you do.
I think it is the envy that's making her distrust and judge her. Because, you know, we hate what we don't understand. And clearly she's got some, like, unresolved feelings towards Elaine wanting to be like her. Because she doesn't stop at her makeup and her wigs, which is one thing, okay? I'll excuse you trying on your friend's makeup, fine. But then she goes through Elaine's things and finds her lingerie and puts it on. That's weird. She seems to be feeling herself when she notices a collection of photos that include her husband Richard sitting on Elaine's vanity. Searching through her things again, she finds the love spell that she put on Richard, along with all the love letters they exchanged. She begins to cry and hasn't noticed that Elaine has entered the bedroom and grabbed a weapon.
She has the Elvira belt knife.
I think they're letter openers, like really fancy letter. I could be wrong. It was a really big knife.
We need one.
Just dramatically opened my mail like that. Elaine goes to attack Trish, but Trish spots her in the reflection of the mirror and grabs the weapon out of her hand. We then see the laziest fight I've ever seen, and it seems like the two actresses did not want to hurt each other while filming this. Elaine politely grabs her wig back, and after a bit of name calling and slapping and wrestling Elaine to the bed, Trish grabs the love letters and tells Elaine that she will burn for this. Get it? Because she's a witch. Distraught, Elaine tries to cast a spell on Trish, causing her to crash and die before she reaches the police. It seems like the situation is so dire that she calls an emergency meeting of her coven to bless her and bind her to Griff no matter what is going to happen next. So at the end of the day, she still just cares about having Griff's love. There is a lot of awkward pauses and beats while we wait for the actors to move to their next spot, like their next cue or mark.
Well, that's what makes it campy.
I think it is, because there's some times where I'm like, oh, why is there silence, or why is it taking so long for this scene? It's because we're waiting for them to walk around the table, go here.
Ding! And then it's camera zoom.
And this fight sequence, I feel like, was a big example of that.
You could see them kind of laughing under their breath and stuff.
I don't know about laughing, but more like...
I saw it on Elaine's face.
You think so?
A little bit. Again, it's full camp.
Yeah. Griff is then waiting for Elaine in the burlesque bar. He is listening to the locals talk crap about the new dancers, who are the witches we saw earlier, Star and Moon, and comment about the teacher who was found buried in the woods with a bunch of witch stuff on his grave. The locals are just talking shit. They do not want these women here.
It turns this whole movie into a classic, the witches must burn, and these are the townspeople.
Yes.
At the local pub, the local watering hole, if you will.
That is a fancy local watering hole with burlesque dancers. I feel like most local bars are not this fancy.
Give me a bloody, what is it, a fucking Campari soda, if you will. A dive bar can't give me a Campari soda.
Let's test this theory. Can I have a Campari soda?
At a dive bar?
Yeah. We should cover American Werewolf in London next.
Can I get the menu at the local dive bar, please? I want to see what signature cocktails you have at this shithole.
You are a hipster.
Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's a bourbon with a smoky hint of aioli.
I thought you were going to say areolas because it's a titty bar.
Yes. It is themed after all.
Elaine finally arrives, and it's clear Griff is not happy to see her. He informs her that he knows about her connection to Wayne, and that Trish came by the station and claimed that Elaine drove her husband to suicide. Elaine explains that she didn't kill anyone. Wayne died of heart failure after a night of beautiful lovemaking, and Richard loved her so much, it drove him insane. So this is interesting because there's a case of this, right? It was all over the news a couple years ago. A young woman, told her boyfriend to just commit suicide. And he did. And they were trying to find her guilty of that. So I feel like that kind of falls in this of how responsible is she? That case, I think she was found guilty, if I remember correctly.
Is it because it was, what is it called? Secondary or third degree manslaughter or whatever it is? Because you had to a say
accidental, maybe?
Yeah. But it's, first of all, an empowering scene because Elaine is what? What are you going to do? Take me down when I didn't do anything? There's no blood on my hands.
Technically, she's right. Yeah.
It also brings to question whether the magic actually happens or not, right? This could totally happen. She's not wrong. And Griff is left there being look, honey, I'm just, lying to the crowd because I have to, because I'm the cop. I have to have an unbiased take.
No, I think he's genuinely mad at her.
It's all a facade.
Well, it's hard to convict her for two men dying on their own, essentially. Yeah, it's the question of how much is she at fault, right?
Well, what would happen if this happened for real? You were dating and your ex-boyfriend died from a heart attack while you were doing it. All right, move on to the next one. And the next one loves you so much, but you guys break up. You go mind your damn business. You move on. That ex-boyfriend unalives himself. That's why
I brought up that case, because I think moving forward, we're going to see more cases like it. I think it's the first of its kind where someone's suicide is then tried as a murder as someone else's fault. I think that is a heavy topic. I don't have enough information to talk about, and it'll just be interesting to see how that case affects other cases moving forward. Griff says, "Are you saying that these men died of love?"
How could they? Men don't believe in love.
He explains that she will never have enough love. Even when a man loves her so much it kills him, it won't be enough for her. And he's right. He finishes by saying that he doesn't love her and that her creepy, sexy act won't work on him. I thought it was such a funny phrasing. Because he mentions how she dolls up to get men to fall in love with her and yada, yada, yada. I was like, what if she just dresses up for herself? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems very resonant with how people are you do it for
male
men.
Attention.
Yep.
He's assuming that much. Mm-hmm. But Elaine isn't fazed by this. She says men and women are like her, needing love, and that men like him punish women by withholding it, never really loving them for who they are. She explains that men often toss her aside until they want her body. So why not find power in witchcraft? Witchcraft. So why not find power in witchcraft and take control over it and sex and love? I find her point really interesting here. And again, I feel like Elaine's a very contradictory person. She wants to buy into the love narrative, but she also realizes that sex and love are sometimes the only way a woman can hold power. Any interaction between her and Griff, I feel, are so different from any interactions she's had with any other men.
Well, because the other dudes are superficial and they're we just want you, and he's leaning into what we assume men do.
Right. He's unattainable, so then she wants him more and doesn't dispose of him as quickly. They're both flawed people in their pursuits. So when people are oh, this film can be seen as anti-feminist because of the things that Elaine is saying, but pay attention to what she's saying and what she does. I don't think it is. I think she's trying to con a system that does not work for women historically, and people keep trying to then assert power over her, like you said, with Gaia trying to control her sexuality still at the end of the day, in something that she feels like she has found control in finally.
She feels powerful in having this control, whether sex and love are involved or not.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I would like to say is people can criticize Elaine because they're oh, for all her power, ultimately all that she wants is the love of a man. And I will say, so what? That's how she finds power and happiness. That's what she wants. I think it's not cool to tell people what they should and shouldn't want. I believe my own opinion, real feminism is letting women pursue what they truly want. If that's to be the CEO or if that's to be the wife, it's none of your fucking business. Just let people find happiness their own way.
A lot of people get hate for deciding to go one way or the other if it doesn't fit someone's perception. And it's not that black and white. There's a lot of gray. And again, it's like whatever your decision is, whatever your path is, if that's what you want to do, that's where the positivity and encouragement should lie. So to your point with Elaine, if Elaine's end goal is she wants to be with this man, then let Elaine do her.
Now, I don't agree with her harming people. That's where my support ends. You shouldn't harm people to get what you want. But ultimately, if we're talking message of the movie, it's like, that's what she wants. That's what she wants. Griff just restates that it won't work this time and that he is going to have to arrest her. And he's arresting her on tampering with Wayne's body, not even the actual death of these two men. The locals overhear this and quickly turn on her, stating, "Burn the witch." The crowd separates the two and start trying to sexually assault Elaine. Graphically, it seems like multiple people in the bar are trying to assault her.
But isn't this a sign of like what we saw in the past? Men who couldn't have that sex symbol of a woman were actually angry that they couldn't
absolutely
be with her. So they're like, well, how do I let this go? Oh, I have to attack her.
Yeah, this woman has autonomy and is deciding what she does and doesn't want. I am going to harm her. And that's the message of witchcraft. That's the witch trials. Women were trying to do things that didn't go with what society believed, and they harmed them. So the part that really bothers me is that the waitresses, other women in the bar, are also cheering them on as they're about to do this.
Same witch trials, there were women who were also like, witch, she could read.
Yeah,
Whore.
basically.
Yeah, she's reading so that men could love her more.
Griff is able to get to her before the situation gets much, much worse, even though it's already pretty bad, and escorts Elaine to the cop car. The entire bar is fighting him the entire time. It's kind of funny because in this moment, he's still the hero. Despite everything he just said to Elaine, he's throwing punches at everyone and is still able to save her. Interestingly enough, he takes her back to her home instead of the police department. So I kind of still get the vibe that he has feelings for her. He's just incredibly mad at her. Elaine takes this opportunity to try and do her usual love rituals on him, calling him a poor baby and fixing him a drink. But true to his word, Griff doesn't fall for it. He throws the drink. She fixes him and looks at her with such anger that Elaine can't take it. His face even turns into all her ex-lovers and eventually into a skull. She turns to her vanity and sees Griff just laying in her bed. Suddenly, she turns and stabs him right through the heart while looking at a painting she created earlier that depicts that exact scene. A woman stabbing a man and pulling his heart out. In her mind, she sees Griff alive, saying he loves her and wants to marry her. And suddenly, they're back on their first date at the Renaissance Fair. Only this time, it's really eerie as there is no music. Griff dies next to her, as in her fantasy, the two ride off into the sunset happily ever after.
What does it mean?
I think it means that Elaine has suffered another psychotic break. But ultimately that she will never be happy and she will never be satisfied.
She will never be satisfied.
Yeah.
She's looking for a man that work.
She's just looking for a man.
I was like, why did she kill him though? Just a psychotic break, that's it?
I think she realizes that all her usual rituals and power that she finds through witchcraft isn't going to work on Griff, and ultimately Griff represents the men that have harmed her, because her ex-husband seemed to be abusive, her father seemed to be abusive, so I don't know if it's her realizing that she is seeking out these men continually, or she's just tired of it. She's tried this 3 other times and it hasn't worked for her. Ultimately, probably the rejection of her and not loving her is what causes her to kill him.
She gains power through their love. She feels like her true self when she has power over these people, and when he doesn't respond to her power, she feels weak.
It could be.
Kill him.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that simple. That's why I was like, what does it mean though?
I think there's a lot of ways you can interpret it. I am not the smartest person out there to interpret this. I think it's interesting that Griff is the only one she actually kills with her intention. Now, is it saying that the person you truly love, you ultimately will harm?
That could be it. And the person who
harms you the most
also harms you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a lot of ways you could look at this.
And that love hurts. I was going to sing it. Yeah, I was going to sing it, but I was like, can I do that?
Yeah, we sing a lot of songs and then cut them because we don't
I don't
know. But yeah, that's The Love Witch. What do you think?
I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good commentary on the relationships between men and women. I think it's pretty cool the way that it interprets how witchcraft is seen in modern day. To your point earlier too, it generalizes a lot of things, right? It does still kind of go back, and I understand the anti-feminist views of it kind of still going back to her wanting the man. What about you?
I really enjoyed this film. I mentioned at the beginning that I had wanted to cover it since like last Valentine's Day. It is visually fun. You could throw it on if you've already seen it and you don't want to pay attention to it and just enjoy the like camera work, the scenes, the setup, the colors, because there is a lot of vibrant use of color. It reminds me a little bit of Suspiria in that sense, where with the dramatic settings. I think you should enjoy this if you realize that no one in this film is in the right. Like, Elaine's probably not the most reliable narrator. Griff is not the most reliable. Trish, like, no one's innocent in this world. And I think it is a film that you should give a couple tries to, because you, again, just watch it the first time and think like, well, this is a really anti-feminist movie. Like, she just, playing into everything that the patriarchy says should be about relationships. There's like little lines and visual gags and like quirks that you should pay attention to, where it's like, that's actually not what the director believes or Elaine believes.
Elaine has an evolution too throughout the movie, right? She starts off very heavy set into, I should do things that men want me to do. And at the end, that's definitely not her story.
That's not what she does.
Yeah.
So I could see how this film's not for everyone. It's a 2-hour runtime. It can seem a little heavy at times. I, however, really enjoy it. And I would give it a 9 out of 10.
I would give it an 8.5, just for the immersiveness too on top of it. Like, the story's good. I don't think it was boring, but I think the feat of putting us in a movie that's not of the 70s and 80s and being able to successfully trick my ass into thinking it was one
until they whipped out a cell phone.
Yeah, I think everyone should watch it at least once.
I also understand that it's not like heavy in horror context. It feels more like of a psychological thriller to me. Femme fatale film.
Yeah, with a little bit of Midsummer.
A little bit of Midsummer, a little bit of Dead Bodies. Just mix it all up. Should we talk about what scared Loki this week?
Runs in with a harp. I don't know what Loki would do. He's never actually seen an instrument live. Maybe I should go get my guitar.
Oh yeah, you should play some music to him and see what he does.
I've always wondered, because we lived at the condo, at least I felt too embarrassed to try to play music.
Do you want to tell us about it, Loki?
We can't play any actual music. Do you prefer that, Loki? Boring.
It's a beautiful sound.
The next time that we get on this, I'm going to have Loki playing just straight up riffs on TikTok, That's going to be an electric harp.
Nice.
Yep. Just you wait. I have to buy a harp first, though. How much do those things cost?
I'm sure they're not cheap. They're massive.
The range is $300 to more than $200,000. So obviously,
we're getting the $200,000.
Yeah, we need the best and
the bit.
The only kind for the bit.
But does that pretty much wrap it up for us here?
It does.
Oh, is that another shirt you got there?
Yeah, it's the What's Your Least Addams Family shirt that's on our website now. So if you want to get the gist of the family, we got Elvira, we got Loki, we got me and Vivi. Ripley wasn't here yet when this happened, but thanks to our friends over on What's Your Least Favorite Scary Movie. They did some artwork, shared it with us. Go support them. Go check out their show. They're amazing. Love those people. They're so fun. Travis and Jess, shout out to you guys, and hope that Talia's feeling better. Yeah, go check out the website. Our new merch is there. Vivi's got a shirt. She just didn't wear it because she wanted to feel witchy instead.
I do not have the outfits that Elaine does, though.
Let's get you some.
I did see some pants that looked like the hippie outfit she's wearing at Target the other day. So if you want a pair of those, they're at Target.
Support our show so that Vivi could get the Elaine outfits.
Oh, no, thank you. I do not give the rainbow to anyone.
200 shirts. We may have enough money to buy Vivi's pants.
One person needs 200 shirts.
Yeah.
But as always, we hope you guys had a good time here with us. You could follow us pretty much anywhere at Shaken Not Scared Pod, except Twitter Shaken Scared Pod. You could send us an email at shakennotscaredpod@gmail.com.
Support the show on Patreon. You can get bonus episodes every month. Goosebumps. We just recently started watching the TV show. We're going to be posting those all year probably. We're also planning on tackling Are You Afraid of the Dark, Tales from the Crypt, any other show really that we could think of, but also movies if our patrons suggest it. Go check it out. Make sure to join the Discord. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a follow. Check out our drink videos. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, comment, like. Oh.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.